Welcome everyone. Looks like we have slowed down with people coming into the room, but my name's Nicole Bomnoski. I'm the sales manager here for RoadAI, and I'm located in Boulder, Colorado. Here with me today, I have Ben Brown, the head of Road Asset Management at Vizsla.
Hello.
And of course, our special guest today, we have Timothy Hunt, Highways Superintendent here at Lewis County. Welcome, Tim.
Welcome. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for welcoming us to the beautiful Lewis County. It's not snowing. It was snowing yesterday, but it'll probably snow tomorrow. But yeah, so welcome. We're going to take the next couple of minutes talking with Tim about road maintenance practices here at Lewis County, and in particular, how Tim and his team have adopted and integrated our solution, RoadAI. So to kind of jump right in, Tim, describe your road asset management practices here at Lewis County and what you've been doing for the past few years.
Thank you. Well, I became the highway superintendent 2.5 years ago, and I tried to look at the data that was available about the road network. And there was a good list of the roads and the length and the width, but really the condition and all of that data was just non-existent. So I wanted to try to figure out how to manage that 250 miles of road that I take care of up here in Lewis County and create a preventative maintenance program. So when to cut shoulders, when to dig ditches, when to chip seal, and when to pave. And so in order to do that, I needed to get condition assessment of the roads. And typically that's done in a paper form. And this has allowed me to be a little more efficient with that.
Awesome. So before we kind of jump right in and throw some more questions at Tim, I figured I'd give you all kind of an introduction because we have some people in the room that don't know what RoadAI is. So RoadAI is basically an app that you run that runs on a smartphone, and it can be fitted into any vehicle. And it costs, or it in terms of the training required, it doesn't have any specialist skills needed, but it enables you to collect HD video across your whole network at normal driving speeds, obviously abide by the speed limit, and under normal traffic conditions. In fact, in most cases, you can have multiple vehicles out on the network, so not just one maintenance vehicle. You can have multiple phones out on the network, and then this data is automatically uploaded into our servers and pieced back together through a technology called computer vision, which is a branch of AI. And it identifies different features in the environment, and we'll play a video so you guys can see the tool in action. But it assesses, like Tim mentioned, the pavement condition using the same methodology as PCI or the PASER process, and it assigns a percentage defect value to every 50 feet of section of network. And this data can be viewed in a heat map or exported in Excel, shapefile, GeoJSON, and analyzed to generate maintenance plans in the same way you would use any other road condition data. So let's get to the main event today. Let's learn how Tim is using RoadAI.
Yeah. So Tim, you were telling us a little bit about the network here in Lewis County, but just to give, there's a real mix of people on the call, I think, and people are carrying out some sort of maintenance process, whether you're at a state DOT or whether you're down in like a little city or town.
Sure.
In terms of your network and your processes here, just tell us, the audience, a little bit more about what the setup is here. How have you been managing this process in the past? Maybe how many people are here in the highways team at Lewis County?
Sure. So Lewis County is a very small county in upstate New York, and the past practice and what I would have done as a town highway superintendent, I was a town highway superintendent before this, where we had 80 miles of road, is you would literally get somebody to drive you in the vehicle, and you would just take a pad of paper and you'd jot down notes on segments of road and try to assess the condition.
So you're writing down, right, there's some alligator cracking, or there's an edge defect.
Yep. To the best of your, your training and your knowledge, you're trying to make notes on every defect that you'd see as you're going down the road.
So not the full like ASTM PCI kind of process, because this is a really structured, detailed process where people are kind of getting out, walking. And this is pretty typical of what we hear. So many people are doing exactly what you just described. And some people more of a structured process, but some people almost no process at all.
And I think that in the small rural areas and in towns, I think it's pretty typical that it's just a windshield survey. It's the highway superintendent's knowledge of what might be happening and trying to make notes of that, and then trying to organize those notes. When I came up here to manage a larger network, I realized that that's got to be more streamlined. I don't have the time to drive and take down notes, first of all. Second of all, it's extremely stressful because you're sitting there as you're driving going, should I note that? Should I note this? Nah, that's probably not, bad enough. And I really don't have the time. So this product really was kind of revolutionary for me. It's very quick and efficient, and it's been very effective.
Yeah, I mean, all of these manual processes, like, it's not our purpose to sit here and say that they are wrong. Like, that's what's been available previously, and people have always just found the best way to collect the data and to manage their networks. So moving from that to like RoadAI, well, first of all, just how did you first see or become aware of RoadAI?
Well, it was really kind of accidental. I was working with our snow plows and the controllers that apply application of sand and salt. And I came across your weather product and do plan on adding that to the trucks. But before I did that, I found this product and this is new to me. And honestly, my expectations were pretty low. I was, how is a smartphone going to be able to pick up this data? First of all. Second of all, we're in a really rural area where we have really limited cell phone service. So I assumed that it was going to be uploading through the cellular service, which it doesn't. It actually uploads through the Wi-Fi network. And then the amount of data that we'd be collecting, the video, the sheer capacity of it, I'm like, but once I put it in the truck, drove the roads, came back, it connected to the Wi-Fi. And by the time I came in the morning, whoosh, my map was all updated and with really good, and it really surpassed my expectations on the quality of the video, but not only that, but the quality of the analysis of what was happening with the roads.
Yeah, well, obviously that's great to hear from our point of view. Yeah, when we've been building the system, we've been careful to go and talk to road maintenance engineers and try to understand, well, first of all, the kind of processes that you were describing previously, like how are they currently solving the problem, and what does that data look like when they've collected that data? And there's huge variation in those processes, but we've really tried to build RoadAI so that it like mimics those processes, so that the data you get out looks kind of similar. It's structured in a similar way, and you can then take it into your maintenance programming in exactly the same way as you used to. We're not, the problem we're trying to solve here is how to get that data collected in a really efficient way. And then you go and plan your maintenance in this kind of same way you always would have.
I'm curious, how long do you think it took you from now, getting that data, and then now with RoadAI, what's the time?
Yeah, I could, at a 250-mile network, it would have taken me weeks and weeks to drive all the roads, make notations, and I probably would have only been able to do that once a year.
Yeah.
Here I'm able to do it, and my plan is to do it at least twice a year, spring and fall, so that pre-construction and post-construction, and it takes me a day and a half to drive the 250 miles of road and get all of that data collected. And you mentioned the collecting the data for kind of the processes but even more importantly in my job, what makes me successful is being able to articulate the needs of our road network to our legislators to receive funding. Whether it's legislators on a state level or county level, town level, we're advocating for money. And oftentimes we come in and say, we need money. And they say, why? And we say, because our roads need it. Well, now we can show them.
Mm.
Pictures are worth 1,000 words. And when we can show them a video and we can show them data and we can show them exactly a heat map of where we need to do our work, that is huge. That is how we communicate well to the public about the needs.
Yeah,
Very transparent.
yeah, I guess you don't need to be a civil engineer to look at a
Mhm.
video and understand that it needs maintenance.
Mhm.
You can just look at it and see the defects. You might not know what the defects are, but
Right.
then I guess then you rely on the advice of your engineers who are doing the job for you. So
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah, and we just asked a question to the audience, and it looks like mix of both in terms of road maintenance strategy, so proactive and reactive.
Mhm.
In terms of, I think we had talked about a lot of the proactive maintenance a little bit, but kind of transitioning to talk about reactive maintenance. How have you found kind of the tool for that?
Well, I do want to delve a little bit deeper into the
Yeah,
proactive,
course.
then we'll talk
Yeah.
about the reactive. So I have a limited budget, like all of us do in the
Yeah.
highway world. And so when you take that 250 miles and you divide it up in a reasonable approach. So one of the things we never did was a lot of proactive
Mm.
planned maintenance. And take chip sealing. If we should chip seal a road, and I can chip seal a road, afford to, every 6 years. So how do I then figure out what roads to do at any given moment? And this tool has really allowed me to plan that very successfully so that I can have a 20-year road plan, but know every 6 years, these are the roads that are most in need
Yeah.
of that, that particular preventative maintenance. So it's been awesome on that. But then the reactive stuff really surprised me. I wasn't even really thinking about that. But just being able to go down through the videos and annotate things like, hazardous trees or standing water. I've driven the roads when it's raining just for that purpose, to find where I might have drainage problems or drainage issues. It picks up all the road signs and gives me a really good map of what's out there and what needs repair. So there's been a lot of that, but I can drop pins on all of the potholes, print a list out, send it to the guys, and they know right where to go to fix that pothole.
Awesome.
yeah. So this idea of early intervention asset management, I think, is what you're kind of alluding to there. And yeah, we did prepare a clip because I think you had a location where you did a chip sealing scheme. So
yes, yeah. So this video right here is a perfect example. So we never really did chip seal roads up here. We just waited till they failed. And if you look at that road on the left, I'm looking at that going, that road needs to be sealed right away, or it's actually a little bit beyond repair. But because of budget constraints, I knew there was no way we were going to be able, that was not on the priority for paving. So I wanted to demonstrate to the legislators and my employees that chip sealing would be an effective way to deal with this. So we chip sealed the road on the left. You can see all the cracking. We shimmed it in some places. We pothole repaired it, and then we chip sealed it. And what you're seeing on the right is that later that year, what that same road looked like. So it's a really low volume rural road. It would have been very expensive to go in and repave that road. But the question is, could we extend its life with a fairly inexpensive treatment? And that's what we did here. And now you can show the legislators that and say, which one is more cost effective in the long haul, trying to extend its life or, waiting till it fails completely.
yeah, it's a great example. And just to explain to the audience, you can see on the left-hand side, the kind of graph data at the bottom is indicating where the defects are being found. This isn't how you normally see the video in the UI. You can play the video back, but we just put them side by side here because you can see obviously the before and after. And the PCI score is being calculated dynamically in this second row of the data in the table down at the bottom of the screen here.
And it's interesting as you watch the video, you can see the wet spots on the road. And I love traveling a road at this moment, because those wet spots are clues, right? They're really important things. So I also took the video on the left and I dropped pins everywhere I saw wet spots of that road. And then some of my crews back and said, I'd like you to do some ditching there, or look at the drainage and see what's going on and why that road is holding water in those particular spots. And you can see where we ditched actually on the right-hand side to try to get that road to drain better. So making sure the road's draining, and then chip sealing it can prolong that road easily another 6 years. But, the hope is in 6 years, we'll chip seal it again and can, preserve it that much longer.
Keep it going a bit longer.
going.
So yeah, the studies I'd looked at, there's just like well publicized study by the Federal Highways Administration, which references the idea of, doing like a chip sealing scheme will cost maybe $1 per meter, compared with if you're going to go and rip that road up and do a complete new reconstruction, it's maybe $5 to $10 a meter.
10. Yep.
So of course that would then, you got a brand new road there, so you expect to get another 25, 30 years out of it. But for like 1/5 or even less of the cost, you're going to get a road that's in really good condition for the next, 7 to 10 years.
Yes.
So you can do the math and like figure out that you're making your dollars making those tax dollars go further, really.
Absolutely. And I have current estimates this year. And of course, asphalt prices are going up exponentially. And so it's even more important that we extend the life of that pavement. And right now, a chip seal or a seal is about 1/10 of the price of pavement.
Right.
So for me to be able to spend 1/10 of that and extend the life of that road 6 years, it's very easy math to figure out that makes sense.
Yeah. But the key thing is you need to know where these kind of like early stage defects are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you're only going and collecting your road condition data once every 4 or 5 years, you might find some minor cracking this year.
Mhm.
Guess what? In 3 years' time, it's not going to be a minor crack anymore. And you're not going to be able to go and like seal that road.
Well, and to be honest with you, the way I would traditionally do it before I had tools like this is I would just take the county and divide them up into 6 geographic areas. And I would just go to the first geographic area and I just chip seal every road, whether it needed it or not.
Yeah.
And then I'd go to geographic area number 2 and just work my way around the county over a 6-year rotation. This allows me to say, I'm not going to spend the money on that road because it doesn't need it, but this road does. So now we're targeting those dollars more specifically toward the exact need, not just, kind of trying to rotate around the county.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, there's an awful lot that the system's doing automatically for you, generating this road condition data. You mentioned the road signs, so it creates the road sign inventory.
So that was one that was really kind of surprising to me, is how well it actually picked up the road signs. Is we're actually in a lawsuit right now over a road sign. And traditionally, we don't have good data about, we have our guys keep a log when they go out and repair a sign, or when they inspect them biannually, that they just put a check mark that they inspected it. But how do we actually prove what that looked like? Well, this takes all of that away. I can go out twice a year. I can go out in the spring. I can go out in the fall. And if somebody comes back and says, that stop sign was missing, I can say on this date, here's exactly what it looked like. It's amazing for that. So for the liability of the signs, and also it's got a great feature where I can say what's changed in my sign inventory in the last 3 months or last 6 months, and I can look for signs that are now missing. And I can say, let's go back and replace those signs. So there's some really amazing stuff that's happening there too.
Yeah. And sometimes those signs, they'll come up as missing, but sometimes they're obscured like in the spring by vegetation. And
sure.
And yeah, and the other thing the system's doing automatically, I don't know whether you've used this much, is the line marking and road markings and the condition detection on that. Have you managed to get started with that?
I have not on that particular, and up here we plow so much. We're in a very snowy place, and our line markings don't hold up well anyway, because we take a heavy carbide blade and we just scrape off everything that we put on the road. So the line marking I have not played with yet.
Yeah, it'll look at that. So there's those 3 automated like data sets that the system's currently producing, and we are always adding more. We've got a long list of things that we're adding, but beyond that, there's also these kind of manual tools that the system has. Have you been able to use any of those? Like I think you mentioned like dropping pins, and how are you using those kind of tools?
So there's a number of ways that I've been doing that. One, I had a student intern that just came in, and I gave him a list of different defects that I wanted him to put pins on and highlight those. And that way I could print those out for our spring work. So pothole repairs, for example, and low hanging branches, things like that. I've also used it a number of times because I'll be driving a road and all of a sudden I see damage to that road. And I stop and talk to the person, you know, whether it be a local farmer or contractor who unloaded an excavator on the road. And they say, no, we didn't do that. I can go right back and go, no, we videoed this 3 days ago and this was not like this. We also have a lot of windmill activity up here, so I can video the roads prior to any construction work. And I've also used it as we did road paving. So I would go out and look at the road, video it. And then when the paving's over, I video it again so that I can see the quality of the contractor. And I actually had a problem with a road that lost its crown when they were paving it. They didn't keep the crown and it was holding water. And I was able to show that. I went out in the rain and drove the road and could see right where the road was holding the water.
Yeah. So with these windmill contractors, just explain exactly how you're using it there.
So they actually hire an engineering firm. We sign a road use agreement with them to use our roads, and they agree to pay for any damage to the roads that would happen.
Because they're bringing some pretty big plant and machinery in to come and construct those foundations and put all those. These are big structures. So.
Big structures and lots of concrete trucks running up and down these roads that were never designed for this kind of loading. And they've been very good about saying, if we shorten the life of that road by 8 years or 10 years, we'll pay for that. We're okay with that. But they don't want you to just come at them and say, you know, you owe me a new road. You've got to demonstrate in some capacity. So they hire their team. They have an engineer go out and they actually do ground penetrating radar on the road. They do a visual survey like this as well, and I do as well. And then when their project is over, we can review the condition of the road before and after, and then we can kind of assess for example, the lowering of the PCI index from the time they started the project to the end of the project and what the value of that is, and come up with a fair payment for that. So it's a great tool for doing that. And even for judging myself. I mean, one of the reasons that I was so attracted to this is I was having a meeting and somebody said, how would I judge whether you're doing a good job as a highway superintendent? And I said, well, it's really simple. The way I look at it is the PCI index going up? And if it is, keep me. And if it's going down, fire me. Am I managing the assets in a positive way or a negative way? And how do we do that? How do I provide a scorecard or a report card to my legislators so that they know I'm doing a good job? Now I have the tool. I can say, here's what the PCI index was when I started. Here's what it was on year 2. Here's what it is on year 3. And give them a tool with which to gauge whether we're being effective.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about good stuff. What kind of bumps in the road have you experienced? Bumps in the road, that's a pun. When a very bad one, but relative. What have you experienced when trying to implement this technology?
So there was a number of concerns. One I mentioned was the technology itself, being in a rural county and limited cell service, and how well that would work. That has been put to rest, no problem. There was also a cost benefit analysis in my mind. There's a cost to this software, obviously. And so when I start to look at that, I always try to analyze, if I'm to do it with labor, what would my labor cost be versus what is the cost of the software? And I think that analysis easily justifies it. Now, the question is, you don't know if it works, right? It's a brand new technology. And it's like, okay, if it works, the cost benefit analysis works, but if it doesn't, then my attitude is we always have to try new things. And if it doesn't work, we just don't do it again. And so we did it and it works. The software works. And so clearly the analysis then is the labor of going out and trying to collect that manually versus this. It makes a lot of sense. If I were to hire an intern or a part-time helper to go out and try to manually collect that data, it'd be far more expensive than the cost of the software. So those were kind of the big ones. I have heard, obviously we live in a new world with cybersecurity. So there's the IT department you got to work through. You got to work through your procurement processes. So there's always some of those bumps in the road, but I think they're easily navigable and I think they're worth it.
Yeah, it is a huge and legitimate area of concern for most government organizations, is cybersecurity and data security. Yeah, well, it's kind of a bit frustrating. There isn't like an easier standard that we can just like apply But yeah, normally it's just a question of filling in lots of forms.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, make it, and yeah.
I mean, the nice thing about it, it's a cloud hosted service. So it's not really tied to the county IT network at all. So it's a cloud hosted service. And so that limits it right there. At the end of the day, what are the real secrets that we're carrying here? The pavement condition of our roads. So if somebody really wants to get into that, it's public information. Anybody is more than welcome to have it. So, but the separating it from the county actual infrastructure, I think does add a level of security to it. So that's been a positive. And then, the procurement part of it is, trying to look at competitors and see what the cost benefit is. But it is a specialized thing like engineering, professional services. So there's ways to do that.
Yeah, and on the security point, just again, we do anonymize the data as well. So we redact any private vehicles. They're just like completely, the pixels are taken out, so you can't see anything. And people actually, and occasionally farm animals. I'm not sure how the models pick those up, but it does.
But it does, yep.
So yeah, yeah. So we've touched on a lot of different applications here. So once you've got the data, yeah, exactly. Like you've got loads more data than you used to have. So how are you using that now? Take us through your process from then on.
I'd like to say that, so to be very honest with you, I'm not fully utilizing the data to its capacity because it is a learning curve for me too. Yeah. So the first part was get out there and drive the roads and see what data it produces. And once the data started coming back, I was like, wow, what am I going to do with all this data? So I still kind of am using the old process, right? I have an Excel spreadsheet with all my roads and the road segments there. Now I'm taking the video and the heat maps, and so the heat map identifies a problem area or a problem road. I go back to my spreadsheet, I take that segment and I mark it for what the next process should be. So I'm kind of going back and forth between just old, data and being able to visualize that data. So that's primarily how I've been using it, in creating the work plans and things like that. But, and I do think that probably the biggest thing that it's helped me with is to be able to show legislators, my employees, members of the public, if they so choose, a rational plan for maintaining the highways. And that data has been invaluable. There's so much more I'd like to do with it. I just haven't gotten the time and the ability. But one of the things that also is we schedule a monthly call to go over it. So that's been helpful for me because as I get time and I want to start to use the data more, the support has been there to say, this is how you extract that data or how you export that into an Excel spreadsheet or so there's lots of flexibility and I think I'm just scratching the surface of what is there right now.
Yeah, we're lucky. We've got a great customer success management team here in the US, and it's a really important part of the process for us is just making sure that people can actually use and get value from the data. And we try not to impose a new process on you. Like I said, we're taking the bottleneck out of the data collection part. So yeah, in the past you used to drive, collect, take notes, then come back and plan. Now you can do, as you said, your whole network in like a few days. And then that planning part can be done in a desktop environment when you've got all that data, and you can refer back to the video. You're not just looking at like notes on a pad and trying to remember what you'd seen at the time. You can just jump in and see the HD video
and look at it. And the other thing it's allowed me to do is, because it is so efficient at collecting that, is in the past you just do it when you could. Now I can start to plan that. So I really like to do it in the spring, right? When the roads are soft, the frost is coming out of the ground. I want to see what's happening there. I want to see it pre-construction. I want to see the roads when it's raining out, because that to me is really important. I can go do that now. I can get 3 or 4 data points throughout the year on the same road, and I can look at all of those and start to look at that too. So that's also been a benefit that I never really, so some of this stuff you're stumbling into as you learn it. And so this year, the goal is really to try to get multiple data points throughout each individual road. Last year was kind of my first year into it. Collected the data, looked at it, started playing with it. This year, now we're going to start to really refine the data sets even more.
Yeah. And I've had it suggested to me, like you mentioned, maybe using interns in the past to do like the data collection. engineers have said to me, so now actually I can give, these interns who are coming to us, instead of giving them a pad and a pencil,
Mhm.
which is a little bit old school,
Little dangerous too.
Yeah.
give them this app with
Yeah.
this like computer vision, AI driven technology.
Yes.
And actually what a lot of, college kids are much better at these days is the data analysis. So,
Mhm.
maybe it's going to be a way to attract more people into the industry. Who knows? I've had it suggested to me. So,
Yeah.
okay. So, yeah.
I mean, we're cutting on time, but I definitely want to leave time for some audience members to ask some questions of Tim or myself and Ben. So feel free to put in the Q&A little icon a question for us to answer. And I think while we're waiting for questions to come through, I think one of the things that I love about this technology is how agile it is. So it's always growing, it's always doing something new. And I feel like our customer success team, that's what we pride ourselves in, and, kind of showing you that value, but we're always very agile in terms of, I feel like a new sign comes up every, meeting. So the system is very agile. You just have to train it to detect that sign. So just wanted to mention that as we wait for questions.
Well, software as a service too, I've noticed, I like that the updates are kind of continual without anything having to happen. And I know the
Yeah.
last one that came out was if your phone was not positioned just correctly to pick up the road, it now alerts you to that and helps you position your phone correctly on the dash. Super easy with the mount, but you do have to make sure that you have the horizon in the right spot. And now the software helps you even do that. So it's better, touching the button and going, and it's literally, you forget about it while you're out there.
Right.
And probably the biggest mistake I've made is a few times I've forgotten about it and driven somewhere like totally off the network, and the thing's still recording.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we've seen a few feet or somebody like drop the phone.
yeah.
That's just 20 minutes of video.
Yeah.
Great. So we have some questions.
Okay.
So how many lanes does the video cover at one time? I can answer this, but
Okay.
does anybody?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So say you're driving in a 3-lane highway, one direction. It covers the middle lane and the lane to your left and the lane to your right. So if you are driving in like a 4-lane highway, obviously you'll have to drive that multiple times in one direction. But what's nice is that it kind of collates the data as you're driving or when you export that. And then in terms of the sign collection, you will have to drive both ways. So say you're driving, just one lane, one direction. Obviously you'll get all the defects on that one lane, but you won't get the signs that are facing, the other way. So that's when you'll have to just drive both directions.
And I guess the way most of our users kind of get past this issue, or it's really not an issue for them, is that you don't have to go and do a planned survey. They go and collect the data ad hoc. Like we've got a client in Colorado who actually puts the app on their sweeper vehicles. So the data is collected like randomly by people who don't even know why that thing's sitting in the windshield of their vehicle. And then it's pieced back together on the network. So those sweepers are going out every month, or you'll have vehicles that are going out here on planned maintenance activities all the time. Just putting the app in the windshield of those vehicles, kind of riding along in those vehicles that are already out on the network. Then you're going to go past the lanes in both directions sooner or later.
And as quickly as it's done, I mean, I've been recommending, and I've had some people collecting data for me and as well, is that I recommend they go up and come back the other direction. So we get the sign data in both directions, and the edge raveling is very accurate when you're right there doing it that way. So I like to have them go both directions, but the nice thing is you don't have to do it at the same time, right? So you can do your whole road network, and 2 days later you come back the other direction, you pick that up. So it works excellent, but it's so quick and efficient. If you just set out and go up and back, it works pretty well for at least a small rural area like this.
Cool. Next question, do you integrate with a GIS system and or an asset management system? If so, how has your experience been with integration? I'll let you answer that.
Okay. Yeah, there are many asset management systems out there. We're operating globally, so there's systems in use in Canada, in the USA, but also across Europe, Australia, New Zealand. So yeah, I'll come back to the point I made earlier, which was the part of the process that we've tried to replicate here and release that bottleneck is the data collection part. And so we've been really careful to make sure we actually do the analysis and deliver the data in a way that makes sense to people's normal processes. We haven't found an asset management system yet that we can't integrate the data to. So I'm throwing myself out for that challenge, like bring one to me, but you can export the data as a CSV or as a shapefile or a GeoJSON. And so, yeah, it's kind of designed to do that.
I'm currently using Esri to collect data that this wouldn't pick up, like culvert pipes, bridges, things like that. I use ArcGIS to do that online. And actually, I do have a pavement layer on there as well, but the collection of the data was always the difficult part. But I've not integrated the two of them. And we do use an asset management system, but we're getting ready to change that to a newer platform, a more modern platform. And then I do hope to be able to integrate this directly into it.
Yeah.
Great. So what is the turnaround time from inspection to reporting?
Well, my experience has been it's way faster than what you've even told me, which is amazing because I can come in and usually in the afternoon, bring my phone in, connect it to the Wi-Fi, and usually within a 2-hour time frame, the data is there. I know it says 48 hours, I think is what to expect, but it's always within, overnight. By morning, it's up and there. So it's very quick turnaround.
Yep, and then you can export the data from there.
Export it right from there.
I mean, and what's maybe significant about that's worth pointing out is that the really difficult problem that we've cracked is to do this in a fully automated way. So we've done lots and lots of data validation checks against like human surveys, and we know our data is at least as accurate as humans. And we're pretty confident it's much more repeatable and consistent than sending humans out to do this process. But doing that in a fully automated way, that's the hard part. There's plenty of other like new technologies coming to this space in the market and trying to crack this problem. But if you're going out and doing this, applying some computer vision, and then you need to sit a human in front of it to check it, that's no longer a fully automated condition assessment. That means you can't use it like you're using it. You just go out and collect data whenever you like. You don't pay for every mile of data you're collecting. You just pay an annual fee. If someone needs to sit and watch it, then you can't offer the product like that. You're back to this point in time survey. So it's really quite fundamental to how this technology is going to deliver value to the market here, is that it needs to be this fully automated process.
And it does upload very quickly. And we don't have the best Wi-Fi service here, but it picks that video up and gets it up there pretty quickly.
That's often the slowest part, is the actual like data upload. You're collecting a lot of data. So, yeah.
So next question, does analysis yield the size and depth of cracks and potholes?
Yeah, another good technical question. So we don't report the depth of potholes because it's not really possible, despite what some people might say, to see the depth of a pothole when you're sitting behind the steering wheel of a vehicle. And that's kind of the perspective our system's looking from. So you can look and you can see the pothole. So the way we've tried to train the system is, humans do this process, is they risk analyze the defects that they see. So they see a pothole, and I know that a lot of the strict application of some of the more technical processes that people follow require people to stop the vehicle, to get out, to put a straight edge across the road and to measure. I've spoken to an awful lot of people who go out and do this activity daily, and I say, do you do that? And they say, no, I know what a intervention level pothole looks like. So I just mark it. So we've tried to use their experience to help us train the system, because the system can kind of see what they can see. So it roughly categorizes whether it's a severe pothole or a moderate pothole. The other thing we're wary of here as well is that, like, there's one thing doing a condition assessment across your entire network, right? Where you're trying to get an idea of where you need to do a scheme. This is not a risk management activity. This is like efficient planning. When you're talking about potholes and other serious risks, like doing that risk analysis, if you get that wrong, the implications of that can be really serious for road users. And we, like, I'll be honest, don't think the technology is ready to take on that responsibility yet. It's not far off, but no. So we haven't even tried to, like, we're not even pushing, we haven't tried to do that, because I don't think people are ready for that, and I don't think the technology is ready for it.
And I understand everybody's up against really tough budgets, but what I try to explain to my folks is I really want to get out of the pothole business. And if we're managing proactively enough, let's prevent them. Let's not go fix them, because fixing them is a lot of labor, a lot of cost. And if we can keep the road sealed and keep in front of them, we can minimize the amount of time we're actually out there filling potholes. So
yeah,
if you can use the data and lean forward and get in front of them, then there'll be a little bit less of worrying about the severity of them.
yeah. And what we can do is automatically find and tag the potholes on the system. So, whenever anyone drives past it, and a new pothole appears, you'll get a notification effectively on the system. It'll appear so you can see it. Then you can look at the video, and you can see a lot from an HD video that's been collected from the front of the vehicle, and you can say, okay, right, maybe that's going to be an intervention level pothole in 2 weeks' time, but today it's okay. But at least then it's on your radar and you're aware of it. But the final risk analysis still needs to be done by an engineer, a human, really.
Yeah. Well, we're right up on time. I know.